Hello and welcome to Thunderbird Blades. My name's Neil and today I'm excited to explore this boardroom worthy blade from CRKT, the CEO Flipper by Richard Rogers. A wonderful knife, but you're gonna have to work for it. So I've had my eye on the CEO for a long time, but for some reason I never pulled the trigger. Then CRKT went and released this modified platform with a flipper tab and I was like, yes please. Now, I did my homework before spending my hard-earned cash, and I knew full well going into the transaction that some owners were reporting super stiff detents, making their blade incredibly hard to deploy. But I thought to myself, screw it, I'm the frickin' CEO of this operation and I make the big decisions. So I placed my bet and rolled the dice, and you know what I discovered? I shouldn't be running a company. Boof. Straight out the box, I was faced with exactly the same problem. I had to place an incredible amount of force on the flipper tab to actuate the blade, and unfortunately it wasn't breaking in with use. Pig sick. Rather than giving up, I gave in and made an executive decision to break my personal code. I decided to fix the action before filming this video. Sorry folks, I always try to give it to you straight out of the box, but there's just something about this knife that was compelling me to turn this bad boy into a boss. More on how I achieved that in a few moments. Okay, let's take a walk around the merchandise. The CEO Flipper is currently on sale at Blade HQ for $39.99. The business end of the knife is rocking a classy looking 3.35 inch slimline blade cut from Oz 8. It's flat ground, has a long sweeping swedge and an elegant satin finish. It's sharp, but not what I would call razor sharp straight out of the box, but it does taper up to a thickness of 0.9 inches at the spine, so it should handle executive type cutting tasks with ease. The blade came perfectly centered and remains centered even after disassembly. One thing I really appreciate about this knife is the blade completely vanishes into the body when closed. To an untrained eye, it might not appear obvious that this is a knife. I think you could be forgiven for thinking it was a pen or a tool of some kind. It's definitely a knife worth considering if discretion is the order of the day. Unfortunately, the action on the CEO was flipping awful. Now it's flipping awesome. And look at this. It's silky smooth and super snappy. So how did I turn this around? Well, first up, I disassembled the knife and applied an opposing force on the lock bar, releasing approximately 50% of the tension on the detent ball. That's a fancy way of saying I bent the lock bar back. I also discovered that the IKBS bearings were bone dry. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I like a coat of lube on my balls. Too easy, man. It's just too easy. But in all seriousness, those two simple tweaks have unleashed the power of the IKBS system and transformed this troubled gentleman's folder into a knife that now has one of the best actions and one of the most drop-shutty blades in my collection. It's fan-flipping-tastic. Moving on down the knife, we have these stylish low-profile black glass reinforced nylon scales sitting on skeletonized steel liners. They're nicely contoured, quite tactile, and provide good grippage. At the back end of the knife, we have a very classy looking end cap and a super duper deep carry pocket clip. I gotta say, this clip design is genius. Nicely done, Mr. Rogers. It's simple, elegant, proportionally balanced, and best of all, fully reversible for goofy flipsters. You can tote this in your shirt, jacket, or trouser pocket and no one would know you're carrying a knife. And finally, we have the liner lock, which as I previously mentioned needed some TLC. And while there isn't a shallow access ramp on the show side, I do find it surprisingly easy to disengage the lock bar when wedging my thumb into the cavity between the liners. Okay, time for a quick size comparison. Let's bring in the brilliant Boker Quaken, also riding on IKBS. And the extraordinary Civivi X-Arc. Check out my video on this gentleman's front flipper. It's excellent. Overall length on the CEO from tip to tail is 7.69 inches. Now looking at this lineup, it's fair to say it's not as small as you think. The slender profile is a little deceiving. It's definitely sitting in that mid to large size category, at least lengthwise. And one thing's for sure, this isn't a heavy knife. He's coming in at a fighting weight of 1.9 ounces, which is perfect if you plan on packing this into a shirt pocket. So the ergos on the CEO aren't bad considering the profile is essentially a long thin rod. I can easily get a full 4-finger grip on the scales, and my thumb naturally rests up just above the pivot on the transition point between the body and the blade spine. The Contour GRN scales are really quite comfortable and the clips unobtrusive. I'm genuinely surprised how nice this feels in hand. And let's face it, this is the flippin' CEO, and not the flippin' see if you can open an industrial sized box in the warehouse, so you're not going to be cranking hard on this knife. Okay, final thoughts. The CEO Flipper is an awesome knife now. That wasn't the case when it landed on my doorstep. It required an intervention to make it as good as I knew it could be. I really don't like doing that sort of thing because it does nothing to encourage companies to improve their quality control. Yeah, I get it, I'm a hypocrite and I broke my own rule, but I did it for you guys in order to help you understand both the potential bugs and the brilliance of this knife. I also did it for myself because I knew deep down there was a better version of it waiting to come out. The CEO is one classy design. The modified action is magic, it's lightweight and exhibits one of the best deep carry pocket clips I have ever seen. Am I glad I got one? Yep, but I had to work for it, and you might too. Alright, that's it for today. If you like the video and want to see more, please click the like and subscribe buttons. If you think this sucks, you're always welcome to click that dislike button twice. Thanks so much for your time, stay safe, and as always, keep flipping awesome knives.